So we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. We also have one of our office assistants here, Ashanti. She works with us. She's lived on campus. So we are just here to answer some questions and get you guys some general information. So I will start by introducing myself. My name is Ella Hicks. I am the program coordinator for University Housing. I work on the home team. We handle all of the contracts and assignments for students living on campus. So chances are I have processed one of your contracts, parent guardian consent forms, answered an email or a phone call in some way, shape, or form. We may have connected and communicated. So I am here just to talk to you guys about the return of contract process and hopefully answer some of your questions. So I will throw it to Hillary.
Hello, everybody. I'm Hillary Galtney, the marketing coordinator for University Housing. I will be helping moderate more this evening as Ella gives you guys all the great information that you need and all the answers to your questions. We will be dropping a form to a Microsoft form that you can fill out in the chat. I'm about to drop that in there in just a second. And that's how we are anticipating questions this evening. So if you will fill that out, then after she goes through the presentation, we will do a little Q&A session and ask as many as we can. If your questions are more specific and a little bit more detailed to your current student situation, then we ask for a little bit of contact information in that form so that we can reach out to you and follow up tomorrow by phone or by email. So I will let Ella get started, and you should be a host now, so you should be able to present.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to walk through exactly how the whole process works from beginning to end, and try to give you all just the general information that I can. So starting off, we have a lot of great reasons to remain living on campus. If any of you are still considering filling out that contract and are kind of in between, do I go off campus or do I stay here? These are just some of the best reasons to remain on campus. Number one being location. You can't get any closer to your classes than living on campus right next to them. If location is a big thing to you, I recommend remaining on campus because it can't get any better than that, especially if you don't have a car and you like to walk. I know I do, so I would love to be able to live close to where I work. So definitely consider that. As well as the fact that it is an academic year contract. So a lot of apartments off campus are, 12-month lease terms, where if you're maybe not taking classes or working over the summer and you like to go home, you're still paying to live there, even though you may not actually be there. But when you're living on campus, you're only paying for the terms that you are taking classes for. So if you are taking classes in the fall and you end up graduating at the end of the semester, all you have to do is let us know before December 1st, and we will cancel the spring portion of your contract. And that goes for, the fall as well before halls open. If you end up not attending or studying abroad or something like that, you can just let us know, and we will just cancel that contract for you. So it's really convenient to not have to pay for, housing when you're not actually here. So the last thing that we also want to encourage you to consider is the fact that it's all-inclusive rent. You are paying for everything all in one. When you make that rent payment, you're not paying on the side for utilities or Wi-Fi or anything like that. You are paying for everything in one lump sum. So it's all about convenience and having a good environment to live in. You also have access to a lot of our staff, including our RAs, our hall coordinators, myself, and so many other faculty members who are here to support you. So definitely a lot of things to consider when it comes to where you're going to live. So currently the contract is available on the My Housing portal. So to get there, you'll want to go to our website, which is housing.fsu.edu. And there is a link to the portal. And once you get there and log in, you'll be able to see it. So that deadline to submit your contract is this Friday, January 13th. So please keep that in mind. As soon as the contract closes, we will start a wait list, which is essentially you waiting to hear from us to see if we have some space left over after that contract closes. So you don't want to put yourself in that position. So just keep in mind that deadline, write it down, put it on your calendar, make sure you don't miss it. The cool thing about this contract for you guys is that you can actually cancel for any reason up until March 1st. The only thing with that is that you will forfeit your deposit, which is a $200 advance payment that will go towards your first rent. So if you cancel before March 1st, you will lose that. But at least you are not bound by the contract, because after March 1st, it will become binding. So if you plan on attending FSU, and you decide you want to live off campus, you've changed your mind, we understand. Make sure you cancel before March 1st, because if you try to cancel afterward, you will have to appeal your contract, which is a huge process. So also keep in mind that deadline. It's very important to know. So room selection, this process looks a lot different from when you were a freshman. When you're an incoming freshman, you tell us your preferences and we try to match them as best as we can. This looks a lot different. You will actually be selecting your own room down to the room number. You will know exactly where you're going to live. And I will go over exactly how it works. So in late January, if you fill out the contract in full, you pay that deposit, that contract becomes binding. You will get an email probably in late January, and it will let you know the exact date and time that your room selection window will open. So we allow students to access the room selection portal periodically throughout about a week or so, usually in early February. So you will receive that email in late January, and this is based on your credit hour count as of the fall semester of 2022. So all those classes that you just took finals for, those will be counted. But essentially, the more credit hours you have, the earlier room selection window you will receive. So be checking your email in the next few weeks. Remember to log in as soon as it opens. That way you will have the best chance of hopefully finding a room that you prefer. If you wait and just assume that something will be there days later, weeks later, I wouldn't bet on it. So definitely go in as soon as you possibly can and see what's in there. And I will show you actual photos of what room selection looks like on the portal so that you can be 100% sure what you're doing when you go in. If you have mutual roommates, when you fill out the contract, you can mutually request each other. We have a deadline for that. It is, I believe, January 20th. So make sure you do that prior to room selection opening. But when you go in room selection, you will actually want to select their names. You only get to move the group once. So if you are the person in the group or the pair who has the earliest room selection time, you will probably end up choosing for everyone. But you want to make sure you select their names because you only get to move the group once. So moving on, you can move as many times as you want as an individual. So you can only assign a group one time. But if you decide you don't want to live with those people anymore, or you would prefer to, be in a different place, you can move yourself as many times as you want. The portal automatically updates when a student cancels their contract on the portal. So if Susie decides, I want to live off campus, so I'm going to go cancel on the portal, and she had a room in Traditions, as soon as she cancels, that room in Traditions is going straight back to the room selection portal. It is not a manual process where we manually add things. It is automatic. So we don't really have a track record of what exactly is available. The best way to try to secure a spot that you prefer is to check it as frequently as possible if you don't get the space you prefer when you first log in. And keep in mind that it will close on April 1st. So keep in mind also that canceling date, which is March 1st, if you decide not to cancel, you still have a whole month to find a different room potentially if you were waiting for something to become available. So here are some photos of room selection. I know it's a little blurry, but you will get to see this yourself. For these purposes, you can see where the requested roommate section is. That's our fake person, Susie Seminole. You'd want to check mark her name if that is your roommate and you want to assign you together. So this is what it will look like. There's a lot of important things for you to read to make sure you understand, you know what you're doing. So once you scroll down, you will see this section. And this is important because how you will look up a space is by the building and room type. So once you click on the building, it'll show you all the different halls that are available that we have for upper division students. Then you'll narrow it down by room type. So if you are looking for rooms in, let's say, Broward, you may want to look for, double privates instead of double shareds, or something like that. So you can narrow it down by room type, or you can just look up by the hall and see what's available. So once you search, this is what will come up if there is anything found from your search. If you are searching something very specific, and there are genuinely no spaces left, nothing may come up. But for this particular time, we looked up spaces in McCollum. These are obviously McCollum townhomes, as there's 4 spaces. So you can see the exact building, the floor, the room number, the amount of open spaces, and the current occupants. So it's super, super easy to navigate, but we all make mistakes. So just make sure you read everything thoroughly and understand what you're doing before you do it. Again, especially if you're assigning yourself with roommates, it is important to finalize where you all want to be before you move everyone, because again, you can only do it once. So once you actually select a room, you will narrow it down. You say, I want to do this one, you click it. And so once you click through, you'll hit save. It's all very self-explanatory, but again, just make sure you read thoroughly and don't rush, because you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So once you select your room and the time flies by and you get all of the decorations for your room, this may be what it looks like. So these are actually some rooms that we had submitted from our Best Room on Campus competition, which we do during the fall. So you actually can decorate your room and send us a photo once we start the competition and a video, and win really cool prizes if you are chosen as a winner. But these are some rooms in Reagan's. Something to keep in mind as I show you some more photos. Every room is different on campus, so I would not bet on your room looking exactly like this if you end up in one of these halls. But this is just to give you an idea of what current FSU students have their room set up like, so you can get some ideas and get excited. So this is a room in Traditions, one of my favorites. I love the decorations, and the layout of the room is just super cool. But some things to look forward to, some ideas to give you for when you're considering living on campus. This is another Tradition space. This student actually included a photo of their common area. So this is how they had their living room set up in their Traditions apartment that they share with someone else, because Traditions is a 2-bed, 1-bath. So each student has their own private room. There's a common area, a kitchen, and a bathroom they share. So we got a picture of the common area from this student, which was wonderful. And then these are some of our suite style upper division halls, which is Broward and DeGraff Hall. And this is how some of the students set up their spaces. You can see on the bottom, it looks like those students kind of coordinated a little bit with their setup, having those FSU blankets. It's super cute. So just some ideas and things to look forward to. And these are all available on our social media. We post a lot about little competitions like this and a lot of resources. So definitely feel free to check out our social media. All of them are at Housing FSU. So go on there, you'll get a lot of information. You can chat with some other families and students. And you can also ask us questions there. Our wonderful marketing coordinator, Hillary, is great about connecting with you. And like Hillary mentioned, if you have more specific questions, I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. But if you have something very specific in a specific situation, please reach out to us. We would love to help you and get an answer for you. I may not be able to do it now, but I promise that we will be in contact with you. So you can give us a call, email works as well, or chances are maybe your answer can be, or maybe you can find your answer on our website, which is again housing.fsu.edu. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Hillary, we can go ahead and start answering some questions.
Absolutely. So there's a little bit of a theme I've noticed to some of these questions. People are asking if they have an OAS accessibility special single room in their freshman year, how does that translate into their next year or the returning year? How do OAS specifications translate over?
Wonderful. They translate over any year that you live on campus with us. You do not have to renew anything. You do not have to update anything unless you have new medical documentation that is relevant that you may need a new sort of accommodation for in terms of housing. Everything they have on file, every accommodation is going to be the same. So how that works is if you are currently a freshman and you are in a single private through an OAS accommodation, we're going to manually assign you to a space that matches your medical accommodation on file. Now you will still be given access to room selection. So it is not set in stone unless you want it to be. If you know, receive your manual assignment and you're perfectly content with that, you don't have to touch anything about room selection. But maybe if you know, you're placed in a single private and maybe you have a friend group and they've secured a Reagan's apartment and you all want to live together, you have the option to forfeit your accommodation. But the thing you need to understand is, for lack of a better way to say it, there's no take backs. Once you put yourself out of that space, we're probably going to utilize that space for another student who has a medical need. And so going back on that is not easy. It would be a very difficult process. So if you end up wanting to forfeit your accommodation, you really need to think it over and make sure it's something you'd want to do. But as far as existing accommodations go, they will be on file and they will be, you know, in effect for as long as you live on campus, unless we hear from OAS or yourself otherwise.
Awesome. So another question we have is, how many roommates can I request?
So you can request up to 3 roommates. So a total is a group of 4. So if you want to have only 2 or 3, that is perfectly fine. You don't have to have a roommate at all. You can be by yourself. But the most amount of people you can request is 3, again, making a group of 4.
All right. How do we prioritize the housing selection for returners?
Ashanti, if you want to answer that question, you know that.
Yes, so priority is based on the total cumulative hours that you have at the end of fall of 2022. So we will have our seniors go first, our juniors, and then our sophomores.
All right. And I know you guys already answered this question, but we did have the question of, when is the housing selection for the returners for fall of 2023, spring 2024?
So we don't have a specific date yet that I can give you. I know that in past years it's been the first week of February. That is subject to change. But I do know that you will be getting an email with your specific room selection date and time. And it's likely that if you call and ask us in the next few weeks, we may have a better idea of the exact date that it opens and ends.
If somebody wanted to currently change a selection that they've already made from a regular suite style to an apartment, is that possible?
So in what terms? Because we haven't opened room selection yet, so no one's been able to select anything. Are they talking about maybe their current space?
That's a good question.
So if you are in room selection and you start with Suite Style. Maybe there's only spaces in Broward and DeGraff when you log in. Like I mentioned before, you have the ability to move yourself as many times as possible. So if you see something pop up that's in Rogers, you can scoot yourself over there real quick. And then maybe one time you get lucky and you see something that opens in Reagan's, and you can just drop yourself in there. So you're able to change it as many times as you want. The only thing to keep in mind is if you have a mutual roommate or a mutual like group of roommates, if you decide to move away from them, you can't move the whole group. You can only move yourself so many times. The group can only be assigned once. But if I didn't answer that question correctly, definitely feel free to call or email us so we can make sure we get that one answered in the correct way.
And we've had quite a bit of feedback, but a lot of these questions are very specific. So we're
Okay.
going to kind of skip over the ones that are very specific to those situations, and we will get back to you on your questions again through either phone or email tomorrow. Our awesome staff will be answering those, so don't worry, we will get you. Let's see, here's a good one. Are there certain dorms reserved or designated for students with certain majors?
There are for freshmen, which we call living learning communities. If you are already in one, you do have the opportunity to remain in the LLC as an upper division student as a mentor. That is a separate process from the room selection process. But for upper division students, we don't have any specific buildings or halls for majors because they are very spread out in terms of the demographics of students. We have anywhere from sophomores as young as 18 or 19, all the way to super seniors who have been here for years and years and years, graduate students. So it's a very broad spectrum of classes. And so that's why as a freshman, it's easier to implement those living learning communities. Whereas for upper division students, they're all over the place. But if you find some mutual people who are in your major who you want to live with, feel free to request them as mutual roommates so that you can be with someone who is, studying the same thing as you.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit more about the cancellation process after the March deadline?
Yes. So how the cancellation process works is any reason before March 1st, you can cancel, you forfeit the deposit. The only other way to cancel the contract after that deadline when it becomes binding is if you're not attending. And what not attending means is that you are not enrolled in classes at Florida State University for the fall or spring semester. And that may look different for everyone. That may mean you're graduating early, you're studying abroad, you're having an internship through FSU intern, and you're not going to be in the area, or you decide to transfer schools. Those are reasons that students end up not attending, and in which case we are able to cancel your contract because you're no longer eligible to live on campus. You would forfeit your deposit, and if you notify us prior to the halls opening in August, there will be associated fees that you will owe. So if you find out in April, May, anytime after the March deadline, but before halls open, let us know immediately so you can get it off your plate and we can process it for you. Now with that, if you fill out the contract, you go through room selection, it's after March 1st, and you just decide you want to live off campus, but you're still going to be attending, or maybe you decide you want to go home but still enroll in online classes, your contract will still remain active because you are still an active FSU student and the contract became binding. There are a few ways to try to appeal that contract through an occupancy release and a financial appeal. And those are there's case by case basis. So if you want more further details on that, we can definitely go through those. I don't want to get too far into it. But the only sure way to cancel after March 1st is if you are not attending FSU. Did I miss anything, Ashanti? Okay, cool.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer questions in the chat as well.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
awesome. Thank you.
All right. And if you are asking questions in the chat and we miss those, please make sure you also fill out the form just so we don't miss your question. We'd love to be able to answer it. But as we are monitoring the form more, just be sure you ask it there as well. We've been asked if we could talk a little bit more about the residence halls that are in the apartment style. Which ones are what we would consider like a central
Yes.
location and maybe a little similar to traditions. Everybody loves traditions.
Yes, so do I.
Okay.
So I can go over what we consider our apartment style halls. Those include Traditions Hall, obviously, Reagan's Hall, McCollum Hall, and Rogers Hall. So what makes these apartment style and not suite style, even though not all of them have private bedrooms, is the fact that there is a kitchen in the unit. So in each unit, if there is a kitchen, that means it is an apartment style hall or an apartment style room. Now, McCollum Hall and Rogers Hall are still shared rooms. So, for example, Rogers Hall is a 2-1. There are two students living in that apartment and one bath. And that sounds like Traditions, except in Rogers Hall you are still sharing the bedroom with another student. So, this is a typical suite style setup, except you get the kitchen and you get the common area with the couch. So you still have that apartment feel, but you're still sharing a room. And just a tidbit, Rogers is the cheapest space to live in on campus. So if you're looking to save some money, Rogers may be the one for you. So with that, the apartment style halls that have private bedrooms are Reagan's and Traditions. And Hillary, if you can remind me the rest of the question, I want to make sure I hit every point.
I think it was just asking which ones are similar to traditions and which ones are central to the location.
Okay. So I would say Reagan's is the most similar to Traditions in that it's the only other one with the private bedrooms. But like I just mentioned, Rogers is the only other one on campus where you're only living with one other student. So again, Rogers is the 2-1 as well as Traditions, except Rogers, you're still sharing the bedroom. And then central to campus is a difficult question to answer, and I will say this to anyone because central to campus means different things to different students depending on where your classes are. So I was a psychology student, so central to me was where the psych department is, which is on the Upper West Side of campus where Rogers, McCollum, Sally are. So that's the perfect place for me. But other students may, be more on the other side of campus. So I think what you need to do for yourself is look on a map and determine where your class is going to be, where's your college, where are you most likely going to be around the most, and maybe try to eliminate some halls that you may feel are a little further away than you're liking. But keep in mind that you can't really get any closer than being on campus. So it's definitely something to consider when it comes to feeling like this may be super far away. It's still super close, I promise. I would love to be able to walk to work. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about location. Where are you going to be the most? Try to find something that's good for you.
Definitely. And we've got some really great locations, especially with the new student union and all the cool stuff that's in there. So some of our Rogers and McCollum apartment style have the union over there, and it's a great place. So, and then with Reagan's, you've got the Student Life building right across the street. So good spaces.
Yes.
I'm seeing a good number of questions that all kind of center around the concern of the priority of returning students, as far as like, as long as they get their contract done in time, are they going to be able to get a space? I'm seeing some concern and making sure that everybody who does want a space to come back, that they have one to come back to.
Yes. So we've never really had an issue with turning away returners who have completed their contract. I will never say never in this position because we've all seen that a huge pandemic that changed the world can happen. So it's definitely, there's always a slight possibility. However, I would not be concerned about whether or not there will be space. again, we do have students who will cancel through that March 1st deadline. So while there may be a high number in the beginning before the contract closes, it's almost a guarantee that students will cancel. They will end up not attending, or they'll want to live off campus or go home or something to that effect. So you, as a returning resident, you are the priority. So you should feel special. We like to prioritize you guys because you've already lived on campus with us. You're here. We're hoping that you're enjoying your experience, and we want to continue that relationship. So you are the most prioritized group of students for our contracting process as it is. You get to cancel for any reason by a deadline. You get to select your room. It's a fancy role. So definitely take that into consideration when you're thinking about room selection and availability, that you get the first pick out of everyone. So if you don't find something you like right away, and your main concern is wanting to have a private room, wanting to be in an apartment space, and all you see is suite style, what I would recommend is to look as much as possible. If you're anything like me, I am very persistent. If there is something that I want, I will try to get it. So if you check as much as you can during the day, again, when a student cancels, that space goes right back into room selection. They could be canceling their contract at midnight. If you're a night owl and you're checking, you may come across a space that immediately opens up, and you may be the one in that moment to get it, because most of those desired spaces and traditions and Reagans, they will be filled. We are not lying when we say there is nothing left. If you can't see anything on the portal, that means there's nothing left. So if you don't find anything before that March 1st deadline, and you're like, man, I really wanted to be in my own room, I think this is what's most important to me, is having my own room. What I would recommend is you have the opportunity to cancel the contract. And if off-campus housing and having that guarantee of your own room and being in an apartment is the most important thing to you, that's something to take into consideration when you're making that decision. Because I don't want you all to assume that you will get one of those apartment style halls, because we only have so many. So if you are open to living in suite style as a sophomore or maybe even a junior, and then once you get more credit hours that next year, you're going to have a better chance of maybe securing a spot that you would prefer more. So it really just depends on what your preference is and what is most important to you when it comes to deciding, do you want to live on campus or not? I think I answered many questions in one.
You did. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the credit hours work with the priority of selection?
Yes. So it is down to the digit. It is not necessarily divided by, here's juniors, here's seniors, here are sophomores. It is by the credit hour. And that includes credit hours that you may have earned when you were in high school or through a transfer college. Whatever credits are added to your cumulative credit hour count, we consider when it comes to assigning you a room selection date and time. So it's important for, if you're in a roommate group, whoever has that higher credit hour count, you're probably going to be the golden child. You're going to be the one who's going to pick for everyone. So it's really important that you all communicate with one another about what's our priority, where do we want to be, and what's the bottom line. What are we going to do if maybe these things aren't available? So definitely keep that in mind. But it is purely assigned by the number of hours you have. We let people in periodically. We don't want to overflow room selection. That is why we do this, to have some priority and for it not to be a huge, just, consortium of people all at once to crash the website, because that would happen if you can imagine. So I can't remember exactly how many people are let in at a time, but it's a certain number of people at a time. So your window may open at 10:45 a.m. on February 3rd, and then your friend next door, theirs may open February 10th at 11:45 a.m. They're always going to open during our operating business hours, which is 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. That way, if you're experiencing any issues, we can help you. You can call us and we can help. So definitely know that we'll be there to help you if you run into any issues. Just feel free to call or email us.
All right. And Ella, can you tell us exactly which process part we are in right now with this?
So
We have
right,
questions
yeah.
asking if the room selection has opened yet.
Not yet. So right now we are still in the process of accepting those contracts. So we don't necessarily have room selection open yet, but we want to prepare you guys before that becomes open. So that will not start until likely early February. So right now we're in the position of still accepting your contracts, letting you request roommates. That will close on this Friday, which is January 13th.
Okay. All right, so we do have some more about OAS. Definitely, those are sort of questions that we want to answer more specifically to your student situation. Let's see. Thank you guys so much for submitting all of these questions.
Yes.
Are there any dorms that require a meal plan?
Nope. No meal plan is required to be on campus, especially probably for you students who will be in an apartment style. You likely won't need that, but if you don't like to cook and you would prefer to have a meal plan, you're more than welcome to contact Seminole Dining and get that set up for yourself. But a meal plan is not required to live on campus, and it is also not done through housing. It is done separately all through Seminole Dining. So if you have specific dining questions, please feel free to contact them.
All right. So this is probably my favorite question so far. Can you live on campus all 4 years if you want to?
Yes, we would love for that to happen. You are more than welcome to live on campus all 4 years. The only requirements to live on campus are you are an admitted FSU student who is enrolled and degree seeking. If you are enrolled, it can be 1 credit hour. As long as you are enrolled and degree seeking and admitted to FSU, which you all are, obviously, you can live on campus as long as you want. Now, if you're not taking classes in the summer, you can't live on campus. You have to be taking classes. So keep that in mind when you're considering what your plans are for the rest of your academic career at FSU.
All right. Here's a really great question. Can we talk a little bit more about being a mentor for the students' current LLC?
So being a mentor for your LLC, to be honest, I don't know exactly how the process works. I do know a wonderful contact for that question, and that is Denise Mercier. She handles all of the LLCs. I know that you have the opportunity to be a mentor, and if that's something you're interested in, Ashanti, if you remember her email, it's just the first letter of her name and then her last name. If you could type that in the chat, we'll get you that contact. So if you want to reach out to her, she'd be more than happy to walk you through the process.
Absolutely. And she's very good to work with.
Yes, very, very, very good to work with. Answers quickly, very thorough.
All right. So as a follow-up for the OAS accommodations, since those are manually assigned, if the student already has a approved accommodation, when will they know what room they have if it's being manually assigned?
Ooh, great question. I would imagine that we would assign you either prior to room selection opening or at some point during room selection, because everyone else will be getting their room assignments by selecting their rooms during that time. And if you have a specific accommodation for a specific room type, I would imagine that we would assign you before room selection because we'd want to make sure that the room type you need is available. So if you do have that specific accommodation, feel free to email us and we can potentially get you a more for sure answer on when you would expect to be assigned. I do know though, once we manually assign you, we will email you to notify you. So it's not like one day out of the blue, just randomly you'll be placed somewhere. We will notify you via email to your student email that we have assigned you. You can check it out on your portal and kind of go over that information of you can participate in room selection, but know that if you decide to move, you will forfeit the accommodation.
All right. All right, we have a great question in the chat. It says, whatever room you have selected as of the April 1st deadline, is that, it moved. Is that your final confirmed room assignment?
Yes. So as of April 1st, once you have selected that room and that portal has closed, at that time, it is set in stone. However, as you may remember from when you were a freshman, you will have the opportunity to request reassignment over the summer. So you'll have to sit tight until we open that in the summer, but you can submit a reassignment request. And essentially, if we have anything available that matches your request, we will try to get you into it. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about selecting your room and reassignments. If you do not select a room for room selection, from when it opens in February to when it closes in April, we will manually assign you. So please don't assume that just not selecting a room means that you're canceling or that you're just gonna not live on campus anymore. You will still be living on campus. You will still be assigned to a space. So make sure that you pick somewhere you want to be instead of having us do it for you. And then in terms of the reassignment request, when it is going on during the summer, it is an automatic reassignment. So if any of you have been reassigned over like the fall semester, you will know that it is an offer that you can decline. In the summer, it is automatic. So when you're filling out your preferences on your room reassignment request for the summer, make sure it is only halls and room types that you would want to be moved to. Or else you may get placed somewhere automatically. And if you don't want to be there, it's kind of like what I mentioned earlier, it's no take backs. It's a little difficult to go back to where you were.
All right. And we talked a little bit about the apartment style, but could you talk about the ones that are suite style that are also for our returners?
Yeah, so suite style is our most popular room type on campus. So it is set up in a Jack and Jill situation with the bathroom where one side of the suite is two students sharing a bedroom. And then there's a bathroom in the middle. And on the other side, there are two other students. At the most, there would be 5 students sharing a bathroom. So there may be triple rooms that you can live in. Maybe if you have a group of 3 students, you can all be in a triple together. But if you are currently in a double shared, that is what Broward and DeGraff Hall have. Now, there are a small number of room types, such as a double private, which is a double shared room where, again, you're sharing a room with someone, but you don't share the bathroom with anyone else. You and that person just share the bathroom. And the rental rates are based on the room type, not the hall, just the room type. We do not have official rental rates for the fall and spring. I don't know when we will, but I would assume it will be soon. But you can kind of gauge what they are now, and assume that there may be a little bit added. But again, it is based on room type. So if you select a double private, you will probably pay a little bit more than you would be paying for a double shared. But those are our 2 suite style upper division halls, again, which is Broward Hall and DeGraff Hall. And Broward Hall is one of our historic renovated halls. It is near Landis Green, over by Reynolds Hall and Gilchrist Landis. And then DeGraff Hall is one of our newer halls. It's over by the new student union, and all of those fun things on that other side of campus.
All right. And so we've been asked, do we have a map of our residence halls with descriptions? And I can answer this one.
Yes.
We don't have a very specific map, but the website, our website, housing.fsu.edu, and I'm going to drop it in the chat, has all of our residence halls. It has descriptions, it has pictures, it has floor plans. And so that's going to be your #1 resource for all things, what the residence halls look like, where they're located, and all the information about them. And you're welcome to elaborate on that more, Ella.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what I would tell someone. I mean, it's also as simple as Google Maps. That's what I would do. You can see where each hall is on the map. If you have classes that are kind of in one side of campus, you may benefit from, living in a hall that's close to that. But yes, our website is full of information. If you want the lowdown on every hall, we've got it. We've got bird's eye view, 3D, um, you know, layouts of what they will look like so that you know what to expect, as well as obviously our social media also has a lot of those pictures of the halls and the rooms that students have decorated. So you've got a lot of resources available to you that Hillary has put together.
All right. Well, I think that we wanted to be conscious of everyone's Monday evening. So we're going to kind of wrap it up here. And if you have any more questions, you're welcome to find us. Ella, where can they find us? Where can they get all their questions answered?
So I recommend looking at the website. We do have a lot of information there. I know I sound like a broken record. And again, that's housing.fsu.edu. But we have a lot of lovely student staff members such as Ashanti, who are available on the phones 9 to 4, Monday through Friday. They are answering your calls and answering your questions. So please feel free to give us a call if you have those specific questions. I am a full-time staff member. I've got some other coworkers who monitor our email. So you can also shoot us an email. We would love to get back to you. We usually have a 1 to 3 business day turnaround. So if you don't get an answer right away, just know we're working on it. If you have anything specific though, and you're here, you can also come in. If you're on campus right now, you just want to talk to someone, we would be so happy to assist you. Just let us know and we will do what we can to help.
All right, and we've got the form, and you're welcome to still continue filling it out through the rest of the evening. Tomorrow morning, we'll generate a spreadsheet that our students will start calling down and going down the line and giving you more information about more specific questions that have to do with accessibility and credit hours and things like that. So thank you all for coming. And this will be recorded, or it's being recorded, and we will be planning to post this to our social media. And we appreciate all of you. Go Noles!
Yes. Thank you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.